Alright, okay. So, dude, let's finish this once and for all. I admit neither one of us are experts on this, so let's just give our theories on this. So, even before we can get into the nitty gritty things, I just want us to think about this. I know this is science fiction, and if this was to be made into a probable thing, how is it? Do you even think that that technology is possible where you can displace matter from one point in space and time and replace it into another point in space and time? Okay, just for the sake of the whole argument, let's say that technology is made possible in the near future. You're able to displace and replace atoms from one physical location in space, in time, to another. Now we have to now answer the question of the principle of conservation of energy. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can just change from one form to another. But how is it now that we're replacing an entire being from one place to another, and then now you're forced with are you going to be like, are there going to be like two users to be present in that time or moment when you take from one point to another? What happens to the whole principle of conservation of energy? Because now there are two users existing in space and time, which wasn't like a thing. But let's just say, okay, for the sake of this argument, let's just say that what we're doing isn't really displacing your atoms, or we have to protect basic laws of physics. And let's say we're not displacing your atoms, but it's your intellect, your psyche that we're putting into another form of you, and we can get by that. So we've removed that. Next thing we have to then come to agree upon is, how are we viewing time? Is time like this physical independent quantity that cannot be changed, or is it like it's just one whole stream, like where regardless of what you do, it's still going to come out into one stream? It's not going to be taken into these other time streams. There's no multiverse, there's no multi timeline, it's just one thing. I don't know. For the sake of this, we'll take both of them. So, if you go with the whole notion that you can't change the past, but you can time travel, let's say you change the past, that past is now your present, and so you've created a new timeline. I guess that will always beat out the whole concept of time travel. Imagine if time travel was real, but we would never know, because every time we use that machine, we create a new timeline, so no one wants to test it out. Or that would then also open up the question to say, how about other timelines? Why isn't it that we've had jumpers into our timeline from these other timelines? They're just those nitty gritty things, even before we can get into the real spicy details. But anyway, for the sake of uncomplicating things, let's just say the whole notion that you brought up of saying you can time travel, you can change the past. So let's get into some of the nitty gritty things. Enter into one, the butterfly effect. Now, so I don't know if you know about the butterfly effect, but basically in the 1900s, or was it late 1800s? Anyway, somewhere there, this scientist postulated that a butterfly flapping its wings in one point of the world can cause a tsunami in another part of the world, like a gushing thrust of wind just by the actions of a butterfly flapping the wings. That basically is like the principle of Ubuntu. I don't know if you've heard of that. You probably have heard of Ubuntu. I am because you are. Basically saying that certain things that happen to you also do shape who you are. You're not an independent event. You're a product of various events that are connected and interlinked. Let me give you an example of this butterfly effect in the most basic of terms. Supposing one fruitful day you decide to throw a piece of glass on the road, and that piece of glass ends up puncturing the tire of an innocent motorist. He's driving, punctures his tire. Now, that man whose tire you've just punctured, that was his daughter's birthday, and he had enough money to either buy a cake or fix his tire. So he decides to fix a tire. Like, I always have my daughter, I will be there for her. So he ends up using that money to fix a tire and doesn't buy the daughter a cake. Now, what we didn't know is that the daughter was suicidal, and that was the last straw. So, the man not buying the daughter a cake caused the child to kill herself. Now, that girl was studying something at school that was going to change and impact the lives of various street kids in Zambia. But now, she's dead. And because she hasn't done that, it means lives of street kids haven't been changed. And this particular group of street kids whose lives haven't been impacted in a positive sense go and attack someone who was going to meet his lover. Now that man never met his lover, so he never some girl, let's say her name is Anne. Anne was never conceived, and Anne through other chains of events was going to do something in terms of time travel. Let's say just say in terms of uh, uplifting the economic value of Zambia as a country. Now, have you seen how all those chain of events started just because you had thrown a piece of glass on the road? In let's say to even bring it more in reality, suppose you end up throwing a bottle into a drainage, and that bottle was the last thing that was going to clog that drainage. And now, water, the rain season has come, cholera has come, 300 people have died. One way or another, you've participated in killing those 300 people in Zambia who've died of cholera. You've seen how small chains of events, this butterfly effect, is showing that events aren't really independent. They're more like interlinked. It's more like a chain reaction of interconnected and interlinked events that lead to a larger event that we call life. So every time you go back in time travel, every time you time travel and go back into the past, you need to understand that you interacting with time means that you have set off the butterfly effect. And so now we're going to ask, supposing like we're not going with the multiverse theory that there's a multiverse, every time you time travel you create a new branch, because that then ruins the whole possibility of time travel, because we'll never know it. So that now means you have changed the timeline, you have changed the present, the future, time moving forward so much to a point that we now lead into the next thing, which is a grandfather paradox. So imagine you go back in time and assassinate your grandfather. Well, that now means that you were never born in the first place. So did you actually go back in time to kill your grandfather? Did that really happen? Imagine you want to stab him, then even before you can stab him, you phase out of existence, or you just phase and you cannot touch him. That's what I imagine, something like that. So, butterfly effect is leading to the grandfather paradox. There's no other way about it. Even if you were to go on some remote island, the actions on that island that you do that's away from human beings will always lead to something. Think about this. Statistically speaking, the fact that you're listening to this voice note doesn't even make any sense. Statistics are never on your side when you think about life in the whole grand scheme. The fact that you are a product of one sperm and one egg, millions and millions of sperms. This is what? Is it 400,000 or something like that after puberty or something like that? Already showing the moment that you time travel and you change even just events that might not seem to be connected to you, but now you're still interacting with the environment. And if you're interacting with the environment, you're interacting with different actions. And I think even if someone was to time travel, a whole bunch of people wouldn't be born one way or another, because events, if I told you the night that you're to conceive your child, go back in time and just do something differently, guess what? Your child wouldn't be born the same way. Either the sex changes, or just different morphological changes would happen, because it's a whole series of interlinked, interconnected events. So that's coming into the grandfather paradox. But let's say we have a supercomputer and we're able to get past through the butterfly effect, the grandfather paradox. Now we would have to ask ourselves this: if time is connected, we're leading into this whole contradiction called the principle of cause and effect. Think of it in this way: for something to have happened, there was a cause, and that cause led to an effect. Now that effect led to a cause, which then led to another effect, which was caused by another cause, which will lead to another effect. Another effect will lead to a cause. It's just like a reverberating cycle, of do, done, do, done. The done was done and the deed was done, do, and all of that. So think of it this way. So 30-year-old you, or let's say 50-year-old you, goes back in time to meet you currently at your current age and tells you something, or let's say gives you the answers of how you should make time travel possible. Now, you at 23 years old will have to grow up and become 50 and go back in time to teach 23-year-old how to do this. And 23-year-old you will now have to grow up, 1050, go back in time to meet the 23-year-old you of you. Then 23-year-old you will grow up, get 30, get 40, get 50, time travel, come back, and stuff like that. So, which came first, the chicken or the egg? At that point, basically, the whole timeline starts surrounding you and it stops moving. The fact that past that, we don't know what exists because you've created a loop point in the timeline and it's just reverberating around you, the existence of you, since you have to grow up, time travel, come back, grow up, time travel, come back, grow up, time, like the principle, cause and effect. It's now a reverberating cycle. It's just coming. You've caused this, and if it does lead to this effect would lead to this cause. This cause will cause that effect. This effect was caused by this cause, and and stuff like that. And at that point, statistically speaking, I think the universe will just self-implode on it. There are too many variables that you have to consider based off this one theory of how time works. And if I'm being honest with you, I think it's easier for someone to convince me that aliens exist than time travel is real. And that means a whole lot, especially in the sense that I don't think that aliens exist. I read this one thing that if aliens exist, then I'm giving up Christianity. Another was like, if aliens exist, they're probably going to hell because they never accepted Jesus as their Lord and personal Savior. Anyway, so are you seeing how time is not an independent event? That we just have to accept it. The other day I was even thinking, like, what are the odds that I decided to start making videos? When I was thinking back at it, so I was like, okay, so 2013, Dad forces us to always wake up before 04, before 03, you should be up. I'm like, okay, cool. Then I get into this habit of turning on the TV, Spirited Channel. I find John Jordan's Anima series. That video just sparked my awe and wonder into the whole creative arts. But that wasn't good enough. Other people, King, Moses, Edward, all these different individuals. But that wasn't still the nail on the coffin. I meet this man in the bus. He tells me, at that time I'm coding, I'm learning how to create this app. I'm using Android Studio. I'm learning some Python. I'm learning some Java. He tells me, put that on hold, finish school first. As if that wasn't enough, 2017, my PC dies. I revive it, but no drivers. And I'm thinking, how do I get to coding? I don't have drivers. I didn't know how to download them. And that just makes me buy a microphone and focus more on videos, so it's a whole series of chain, like a whole chain of events. Time is not an independent entity per se. It's more like, okay, it is an independent constant that is influenced by interconnected, interlinked events. So when you put this into perspective, when you put in things like the butterfly effect, the grandfather paradox, the cause and effect, displacement and replacement of matter or atoms, the principle of conservation of energy. And the last point, which I jokingly said, was it's not in the Bible, so it's for satanics. Yeah, but when you put in all these variables into it, it just seems highly unlikely, like highly unlikely. And really, I would like to hear from you. I'd like to hear what you say, my guy. I'd like to hear how you'd theoretically explain the possibility of all of this, because my G, it's just not even probable. It's not even, there's no ounce of possibility. It's not plausible. I just don't see it. Let me try to look at it from a perspective. Mm. Let's see. I go into 1927. Oh my goodness, I would have killed millions of people just by existing when I didn't exist. Millions of people dead. Oh my goodness. So what would mean of my current present? Hmm. Now that we just the only logical explanation is the multiverse, but we know that Mark doesn't exist. I don't. Anyway, that's a whole different conversation on itself. Um, but yeah, I guess those are my views. Those are my views. I'd like to hear from you, my G. Otherwise, right, the bat is out. Peace.